The College Football Playoff Committee has finally spoken, and we now know who the 4 teams will be that will be competing in this year's College Football Playoff. This is the 3rd time that we've had the College Football Playoff format, and we are set to have a great bowl season. Whether if it's the semifinals or New Year's Six, we will get to in a little bit. But let's go over the 4 teams that will be competing for this year's national championship. At number 1, we had Alabama, of course, being 13-0, undefeated, obvious number 1 seed. Number 2, we have Clemson, who jumped Ohio State after winning last night's ACC championship game. Well, Ohio State fell at number 3, but some had a possibility. Some thought it was a possibility that Ohio State would fall out of the top 4. I didn't think so. I was saying Ohio State was a lock after the win against Michigan, which Ohio State is now at number 3. So the question coming into this morning was, who was number 4? Who would the committee put as that 4th team that would play Alabama? Were they going to choose Washington? Or were they going to choose Penn State? Or would they have chosen a complete wild card in Michigan? Well, the committee decided at number 4 to put in the Washington Huskies. Some agree with this one, some don't agree with it. And the first 2 out were at number 5, Penn State, and number 6, Michigan. But both these teams are going into great New Year's Six bowl games, which these 2 teams definitely deserve. But of course, we have some takeaway questions that we saw from today. The first takeaway question was, hang on. I finally got my straw. Whoever said that I needed a straw. I wanted to get one of those bendy straws, like the ones that little kids use, but I think I'm too mature for that. The first takeaway question was, why did the committee choose Washington over Penn State? Washington had a horrible non-conference schedule, like Portland State, Rutgers, Idaho. I think it was Idaho. But still, those 3 non-conference games, those are kinds of a joke. I'm sure one of the best high school football teams in the nation can compete with those 3 teams. Just honest opinion. That's kind of like choosing your easiest... That's like choosing your own conference by making those 3 teams your non-conference schedules. It's like you're trying to go to at least a bowl game at that point for scheduling those 3 teams for non-conference. Because nobody expected Washington to be at this point. Although I did see a video from Stillwater Sports Cards back in the offseason said Washington would be the surprise for the year. And he was correct. And if I can find that video, I'll put it in the description below. But still, Washington at number 4. I put Washington at number 4, although I wanted to see Michigan rather. So I feel like out of those 3 teams, Washington, Penn State, and Michigan, I thought Michigan would have a better chance of beating Alabama than those other 2 teams. But really what it came down to is probably the records. They probably didn't want to make a 2-loss Penn State team over Washington, because Washington only did lose 1 game, but it was probably the game that was their biggest game of the year against USC, a 13-point loss at home. But Penn State got demolished by Michigan early in the year, 49-10, and they kind of wanted, they were kind of coming for James Franklin's head over in Happy Valley. But Penn State had probably the biggest win of the year, an upset win against Ohio State. However, here's what really cost Penn State a shot at the playoff. The loss to Pittsburgh 42-39 early in the season. That is what cost them a shot in the playoff, because Pittsburgh ended up beating Clemson eventually later in the season. And if Penn State would have beaten Pittsburgh, I will almost guarantee you that Penn State would have gotten in over Washington. Because if Penn State were to have beaten Pittsburgh and then Pittsburgh eventually beat Clemson, that means Penn State beat a team that beat a team that was in the top 3. And they would have also beaten the 3 team overall in Ohio State. So that would have been a better resume for Penn State. See, that's why these non-conference games really matter. And early games in the year, they matter. Now, I kind of said in the beginning of the year, back in preseason, that this would probably be the year that we'd get 2 teams in the same conference in the playoff. And we almost did that. If Washington would have lost, or if Clemson would have lost, we would have had 2 teams in the same conference. There's just no question about that. We almost had it. Although if I was on the committee, I would put Michigan number 4 team, and here's why. I feel like Michigan could give any of those teams in the top four run for the money. I, in fact, think that Penn State would lose to Michigan. Michigan would just smoke Penn State head to head right now, like we saw in Week 4. I also think Michigan would be Washington straight up right now, because I feel like Michigan's defense, there's just so much experience on both sides of the football for Michigan. Tight end's a senior, running back's a senior. They got 2 or 3 wide receivers that are seniors as well. Bunch of experience on the defensive line. And I feel like that would have prevailed them over Washington, because Washington is just inexperienced. They have not played that many big games up until this season. No big games really for Washington on that roster until this year. Which kind of leads to the next question, or at least the next takeaway question. Should Michigan have been considered in the top 4? I feel like they should have. I mean, they had leads against Iowa and Ohio State. They lost their 2 games on the exact final play of the game. Iowa on a game-winning field goal, and Ohio State kind of after a controversial 4th and 1 call, which, whether if it was short or not. But Michigan had a lead. They could have gone up 24-7, but there was a holding call. So penalties kind of plagued Michigan. Jim Harbaugh was angry at the officiating, which he could have some points in there. So really, Michigan, what we think is Michigan's probably one horrible holding call or horrible measurement away from being in the college football playoff. And like I said, I would put Michigan in the top 4 because I feel like they're one of the best 4 teams in all of college football. I feel like Michigan could beat Ohio State right now because I just feel like they'd have momentum. They would come out of anger out of the last time they played. Which kind of leads into the final takeaway question. How can we make a case for extending the amount of teams for future years in this college football playoff? I would say if you extended it to 6 teams, like you'd have the semifinals, but you'd have the quarterfinals, like kind of what they do in basketball. Like they do the last 2 in. Like basketball is the last 4 in. For football, we can do the last 2 in. Like we could have 5 and 6. Like, or we can do like the way the NFL playoff system works. It's like 6 teams from every conference. You'd have 3 versus 6 playing a wild card game. You'd have 4 and 5 playing a wild card game. I mean, you have the semifinals on New Year's Eve. Well, how about you can have the play-in games, 3 versus 6 and 4 versus 5, on Christmas Eve? That would just bring so much attention to college football in future years. It'd make college football even better than it already is. But if we ran it on that system, here's what it would look like. We'd have Ohio State and Michigan in a rematch on New Year's Eve, if under this system. We'd also have Washington versus Penn State, probably 2 of the hottest teams in college football, the 2 most improved teams in college football this year, going at it, which would make a great Christmas Eve this year if we would have had that extension. But while we can have it this year, I at least hope that maybe the NCAA and the committee kind of can come to an agreement on extending a couple of teams. Maybe we can even do 8. Maybe we can even, or we can just stay at 6, have 3 and 6, 4 and 5 play-in games. Kind of what they do for basketball. Do play-in games, and if you win, you go to the next round. I just feel like that would be really interesting to see. Or you could have maybe, just maybe have 5 teams, have 4 and 5 play in a play-in game. But still, I feel like 4 is just not enough. I said this last year. I kind of raved about it last year. How maybe extend it to 8 teams or do what basketball does and do 64. Or we can just skip conference championships for that matter. Like we could skip or I kind of said last week, I had a viewer that views this channel regularly. And he kind of said to divide up all 128 teams in college football into 16 different divisions throughout 8 conferences. And the winner of each division played in a conference championship game, which would be the first round of the playoff. Which that would give all 128 teams a chance to win the national championship, or give them an equal chance of winning the national championship every single season. And I feel like that'd be a great idea. That way, with all this controversy of Ohio State's in the playoff, even though they didn't even win their division in the Big Ten. I feel like that would be an interesting thing to see. Or we can just do my way. Just have 3 versus 6, 4 versus 5 play on New Year's Eve. Or not Christmas Eve. My bad. Because really, there are bowl games on Christmas Eve, but they're group of 5 games, like the Hawaii Bowl, and I think in years past, like the Popeyes Bahamas Bowl. And I'm sure 11 out of 10 people would much rather see an Ohio State Michigan rematch for a chance to go to the cultural playoff in the semifinal round, and Washington versus Penn State go at it in Christmas Eve play-in games, than probably the Popeyes Bahamas Bowl or the Hawaii Bowl. I'm sure 11 out of 10 people would rather do that. However, that talk is over. Let's get to the other New Year's Six games. These are some great matchups we're going to have. Starting with the Orange Bowl, Michigan versus Florida State. I really like that matchup. I mean, Michigan has seniors that really want to go out on top to finish off the career winning a huge New Year's Six game against Florida State. Florida State got devastated against Houston last year in their bowl game, in the Peach Bowl last year, and they're looking to get some redemption. The Rose Bowl, Penn State versus USC, two of the hottest teams in college football right now. That's be a great one to see. The granddaddy of them all. In the Cotton Bowl, Western Michigan representing the group of 5 going up against Wisconsin. I think that'll be a great matchup to see. To see Western Michigan actually have a chance to prove themselves against a top-tier team like Wisconsin. And the Sugar Bowl, Auburn versus Oklahoma. Really great matchup. I think that's going to be a huge offensive affair. That's be a great one to go at it. But those are just some of the bowl games this season, as I am really happy to announce that I am planning on hosting a 2016 Johnny Talk Sports Bowl Mania Bash. Basically, it's going to be the Bowl Mania on ESPN. If those of you that aren't familiar with it, if you have an ESPN account, I'm going to put the link in the description box below. When I get this, I'm going to get that going right as soon as I upload this video. And College Sports Gurus, I'm really thankful that they say that I got them covered. By the way, look at the College Sports Gurus. They're great guys, great channel. It just started a couple weeks ago, but I feel like it's something that can really rise to power pretty soon. Anyway, like and subscribe to the channel. Again, I will get that Bowl Mania Bash. I will get that up. You can enter it if you'd like. It's going to be really exciting this year. 42 great bowl games. A bunch of bowl games have already been announced, but I will get to that in my next video. I will see you then. Have a good day, everybody.